Okay, good morning. I think we're going to get started now. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and participants joining us in person and online, a warm welcome to our inaugural town hall for the New York State Master Plan for Aging. I am deeply grateful for your presence here today as we embark on this crucial journey of drafting the core recommendations that will shape the Master Plan for Aging. I extend a special thank you to Catherine Garcia and Lorraine Cortez Vasquez for their esteemed presence here today. I also want to extend a warm welcome to our Vice Chair for the Master Plan for Aging, Greg Olson, from the New York State Office of Aging, who will be appearing digitally. And a special thanks to the Department of Health and the State Office of Aging and all of our state partners who are helping to make the master plan a success. I'm going to invite Catherine Garcia, the Director of State Operations, to give some opening remarks for today's town hall.
Oh, well, now it's better. So you missed my whole first opening. Uh, but we also know that wellness is not just a medical term, and we have certainly seen how important access to food, access to social activity, working conditions. Older adults are going to be working far longer than in the past. Financial security and even physical safety. And as some of you who are in the room can see, I am definitely beginning to understand the challenges of having lack of mobility, trying to get around. So being cognizant of making sure that there are accommodations for people as they age so that they are living their fullest life. And that means the solutions we need to address these issues cannot be done piecemeal. They can't just be in the Department of Health or through Medicaid. They can't just be in the Office of Aging, who's looking at programs through that lens. It has to be across the board. And that is why it's not just the Department of Health and not just aging, but all of the agencies across the state looking at how they touch this issue. And we know that we are all aging fast in the state of New York. And by 2030, a quarter of the state's population will be over 60, and that will include me, and I'm not really ready to accept that yet. And so it is a different paradigm than now, than 20 years ago. And the services that we need to be providing are going to be different as we move forward. So this is a whole full government effort that the governor has put in place. She wants to make sure that we are impacting the daily lives of older New Yorkers and ensuring that they're fulfilling. And she often talks about her father, who was living independently well into his 90s, and that he have a fulfilling life moving forward. But I am thrilled that the Department of Health and the State Office for the Aging are bringing all their resources to this and really driving the plan and making sure that we are leaving nothing untouched. The process will go through. There are a lot of strengths. There are a ton of things that we have put in place for older New Yorkers, but there are gaps. And making sure that we are not allowing someone to fall through the cracks is critically important. For example, there are a lot of right supports that exist, but there can be lost in a really confusing array of bureaucracy. Um, and while my mother cannot live without her iPhone, not all technology is easy to get through. Mainly the iPhone is for photos and texting the grandchildren. She found out that it was the most effective way to communicate. Uh, they didn't call her, but they will text her very, very early in the morning. So this is a real opportunity to look forward and to think about what proposals we can craft in a very thoughtful way, which is why these town halls are so important, because we need to be hearing from everyone. As we engage across the state, we know that the proposals will be very varied. What's going to work in the North Country is not going to work in the city of New York. And some of the more challenges that you wouldn't think of in the city of New York, like transportation, can be Herculean in some place like the North Country. And we have to know that we're going to address some of the crises that are actually impacting New Yorkers more broadly, and particularly for people who are older New Yorkers. For example, the housing crisis. It is impacting older New Yorkers as much as it impacts everyone else. solving the workforce crisis. We know that we have severe limits in our direct care workforce, and how are we putting in place really thoughtful ways to both retain people who are working in the care economy, but also to broaden and attract people into the care economy. And remember that many older New Yorkers are caregivers themselves, whether or not you're caring for a grandchild or you're caring for a partner. Uh, you often are part of the care economy. And increasing access to medical services. There is a tremendous amount available through Medicare and Medicaid, but we know that people in certain parts of this state don't necessarily have access to a primary care doctor, someone to really quarterback what's happening for you and looking at all of your health. And there is no one size fits all, which is why this has got to continue to be a collaboration going forward that is creative, that is flexible, that understands how incredibly diverse the older population is physically, mentally, as well as culturally. Lorraine will get up here and she'll tell you if you serve the wrong food to the wrong senior, you will hear about it. They'll be very clear that you have not met their needs. And this is why we are making long-term investments in access to technology, developing that pipeline of caregivers, and making this an attractive place to age. I know that for people that I know in the city of New York, being able to do things that are cultural is incredibly important. And how do we bring that same access across the state? But public input is going to be critical. This is really a project that is not about doing this in a vacuum. We want to make sure that the master plan drives real reform that are sensitive to the greatest needs of older New Yorkers. So I so appreciate the Department of Health and the State Office for the Aging's leadership in assembling a community of people where we can learn from each other, both in and out of government, best practices, experts, and the public at large. So I want to thank you for your commitment to being a part of this. I believe this is the first step in what I hope will be a very successful journey. So, like, by the time I reach older New York status, so occasionally the governor doesn't like older New Yorkers starting at 60. She's slightly over it. Also understanding that, well, I'm going to tell a very funny aside. When my mother was 65, she's like, I'm going to retire in 5 years. And I was like, oh, so you're going to retire when you're 70? She's like, absolutely not. I'm definitely retiring before 70. I was like, okay, so either you don't know math or you don't believe you're 65 yet. And it was really like she just in her head was like, I am still young and vibrant, and she has been well into her 80s still far. And understanding that, like, don't approach people who are older as if they're going to get put on a shelf. How are we making it so that they have a real pathway and that we're still celebrating all of their contributions, because there are so many that they can make even as we age. And while no one has found the fountain of youth, I'm not actually sure that I'd want to be 20 again. There are things about aging that are really very enjoyable, I would say. Though reading glasses are not one of those things. But thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate all of your contributions.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Now I'd like to welcome Lorraine Cortez Vasquez, Commissioner of the New York City Department of Aging, to talk about the priorities of her department and for Mayor Adams' administration around supports and services for older adults.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam, for the opportunity. Thank you for the partnership. I am thrilled to be part of this for a variety of reasons. The first being that we believe that this state and this city has two bookends that it must take care of. And those are the older, I'm looking for my notes. I just found them. There are two bookends that we must tend to and care for, and they are not opposing bookends, but they're bookends that are vital to the state's well-being, and that is our youth as well as our older adult. And so the one thing you will never hear us talk about, and I know in the state also, There's no conversation about an either or. A state that thrives is a state that's age inclusive. And so you're going to hear me talk about age inclusivity um, a lot more. One of the things that I want to uh, bring to you today is to inform you about some of the directions that we've been moving in that are aligned with a state master plan, and some that I think can inform a state master plan. And so we're very excited to share that with you. But first of all, I want to say good morning to a lot of my colleagues here. The work that New York City Aging does is only possible because of the many people in this room. You are the ones that are, you are the ones that are day to day serving older adults or advocating for older adults. So I really want to thank you. And therefore, it's going to be really important that your voice and the voice of the people you represent, and hopefully at some point, we can have the voice of the older person really inform the state master plan. And so I want to be able to say that. So I'm going to start with an age inclusive city. In 2007, New York City was launched and known as the age-friendly city globally. And we've made some great strides in that. And so it was looking at the daily needs of older adults and trying to address those. But that was an accommodation and that was structural. And we knew that that was essential. That's an essential first step, that the structures and all of the facilities can accommodate the different needs of older adults. And then in 2010, New York City was named the first and the model age-friendly city by the World Health Organization. And we're really proud of that establishment and that recognition. And what we've done shortly after that was we started around 2000 and in the pandemic, right? It was 2019, right before the pandemic. We started looking at a 5-year master plan for aging, building on what we learned from Age Friendly, building on what we've learned from the network, building on all of the service providers that we have that we've worked with over the years. And the 5-year master plan had one focus, right? Had one goal. And the goal was about an age inclusive city where aging in place was what we were striving for. And so we put a stake in the ground. We said aging in place is essential because AARP has constantly told us, study after study, that 85 to 90% of individuals want to age in place. And then we also have other studies given to us by Brookdale and other research organizations that say that people who age in place have better health standings, better mental health standings. And so we knew that that was the goal and that was what should be driving all of our initiatives. Never losing sight that we have at least a 15% that are infirmed and need in-home services. So that is not ever forgotten. But aging in place is what we thrive for, and that's where the biggest gaps occur. And having a 94-year-old mother and embracing my own aging process, I can tell you that I want to make sure that all of those systems are in place because I, Commissioner for the Department for the Aging, had the hardest time navigating the system to make sure that my mother can get the resources that she wants. And that is someone who's informed. That is someone who has access. So imagine what Mrs. Rodriguez, who might not have the same supports or resources or access, is going through on a regular basis. And that is what we want to really address. So we came up with the 5-year strategic plan. And in 2022, Mayor Adam pushes the envelope. And then he expands age friendly from age friendly to age inclusive, which is a new standard and creating a system that embeds in all of our systems, operations and cultural change. So what did he do? He brought together 20 city agencies who touch the lives of older adults. Department of Education, Department of Health, Department of Transportation, HPD, and NYPD, and several of the city agencies brought them together and said, okay, How are we touching older adults? How are those systems working? How can we accelerate these processes? Where are the gaps? And what is it that we need to do? Always with the future vision about creating an age-friendly place. And so the Cabinet of Older New Yorkers was formed. And we have really embraced that. It's everything that we do. The charge has been very clear. What you do is going to inform my policy decisions around older adults and around other systems. And so I'm going to tell you about some of the early accomplishments. But what I'm going to ask the state plan to do is the state plan has put together a council of state agencies. And I would love for that council to be, institutionalized and maintained permanent, to just retain that, because that is how you accelerate change. And I'm going to give you a few examples of that. Recently, the Department of Small Business and the Mayor's Office of Community Mental Health asked to be part of the cabinet. It's amazing to me how many agencies are now asking to be part of the cabinet. And because they see that where they are having troubles looking at forward about how they can implement their programs, the cabinet helps inform them. For us, it was a no-brainer to include the Small Business Administration. So many older women are entrepreneurs. How do we get the supports? How do we make the Small Business Administration's entrepreneurial programs be responsive to this population? The programs are not geared for that population. And then for the Mayor's Office of Mental Health, that was very clear to us also. When we started in 2019, we had 25 mental health programs. Today, we have 88. So we need a strong partnership, particularly after the pandemic. We knew that mental health services were essential. And I'm glad and those mental health services are not standalone operations. What we've done in this model that we've created for older adult geriatric mental health is embed those in older adult centers. And so that is a key process that we've done. And that came out of, some of the work that we've done collaboratively. So I'm going to share with you a few examples. We started an anti-ageism movement. Many of you know that. There isn't a place that I don't go to that I don't start talking about combating ageism. As a matter of fact, AARP invited me to a founders and an inventors meeting. And one of the questions posed to me was, what if I don't want to be like my mother? I don't want to have the lifestyle. So that's the most ageist question I've heard all day. And you're asking me to come here and teach you about ageism. So it's wherever we are. It's insidious. We talk about ageism in three ways, right? There is the benevolent ageism, which is, aren't they sweet? Aren't they wonderful? Look at all those older adults. Look at what they're doing. And then there is the negative and insulting one, which is they're walking too slow. They're holding up traffic. I have to say everything loudly. And all of those negative tropes that we hear. Or the one that I love the most is, look at them, they're holding hands, as if older adult sexuality ends at a particular age. And then there's the insidious one, which sometimes is the most harmful. It's the one that we self-impose. It's the ones that we start thinking that our abilities are limitless, are limited. And that's the one that we have to combat the most, which is why the network reinforces the value and the assets of older adults. And that's really key to us. So looking at an anti-ageism movement, we said, where does the most learning happen in someone's life? And the most learning happens in someone's life is in those formative educational years, right? And so what we've started is we started a program with the Department of Education with a pilot program with 18 high schools in New York City to look at combating ageism and build a curriculum around ageism within those 18 high schools. And we're really excited about some of the early conversations and anecdotal information that we're hearing. That genius idea did not come from us. That genius idea came from some young people who served as interns at New York City Aging the year before that, who were telling us how they were so influenced by the media and so many other things about ageism being bad. And so they did a study and started looking at all of the different places they saw ageism, and then did a report on that. So they were the ones that instructed us with the idea, we need to teach this in schools. And as a result of that, we listened to them, and we then said, they're the ones that are guiding us, and therefore this curriculum has started. The beauty is that we will use the summer to, given the feedback of the older adults and, given the feedback of the principals and the students, and we will now then modify so that the curriculum stays evergreen. The other thing that we've been really excited about is this other intergenerational program. Again, because these are bookends that we're talking about. If one sees each other as oppositional and not as part of a community, society hurts. And so what we've done is take in high crime, high targeted communities in public housing. What we've done is we've created intergenerational programming that is very specific intergenerational program. It is about story exchanges, but it's about story exchanges about that community and your daily life in that community. And it is the end goal is community building and obviously public safety, so that if there anything ever disrupts in that particular community, New York City Public Housing, the community officers all have a resource, a group that they can go to and start discussing how we can mitigate and address some of those issues. So far, 100 people have participated in 10 different facilities. We're expanding that now. We had our first completion ceremony, and they were very clear to tell us, both the young people and the older adults, this is not completion. We're going to continue. You may be moving on, but we're continuing. And then the other thing to empower aging in place is that we have trained healthcare professionals. There's 200 of them so far, bridging the gap between the healthcare system and our community-based organizations, and many of our community-based organizations all have relationships with healthcare facilities. But what we wanted to do was to make sure that the health system knew what these resources were. So what we've done is train them in those kind of areas. And then the one that has been the most rewarding to date, besides the school one, has been the pedestrian safety. With the Department of Transportation 2 years ago, they came up with a pedestrian safety survey. And they found that of the fatalities, that pedestrian fatalities, something like 52% of those were for older adults. And so we started mobilizing. How is it that we can really diminish the number of people hurt? And so they identified 10 communities that had the highest number of older adults. And then we put what they call traffic calming devices to prevent fatalities. And those things could be boulders, a sidewalk extended, those plastic things. And so that continues. And what we've done to this point is now we are doing audits with older adults in their communities. And so we've identified 20 communities where we're doing audits where we can continue going beyond traffic calming devices. And the interesting part about that is that when you make streets and roads safe for older adults, you make them safe for everyone, right? So when you delay the light changing, it also helps the mother with the baby carriage. It also helps the person who has disabilities or different abilities. And so when I was in multicultural marketing, I used to always say, if you market it for the multicultural market, everybody benefits. If you market for the general market, only the general market, because you're not going into the needs and wants of others. The same thing is happening in the older adult field. If you market and plan for older adults, many more aspects and parts of your society benefit from those improvements. So one of the things that we're in phase 2 of the projects, and I will end in 2 seconds, Adam. The phase 2 of the project is we are working with the new NYPD to get one police officer in every precinct dedicated to older adult victims and their families. We have had this conversation for years, and we are seeing it come into a reality because of the cabinet. So when you're sitting around the table and you're hearing where their gaps are and you see where your agency can take a role, then you see action accelerated and plans. And none of this has been at additional cost. I really want to emphasize that. You know, none of this has been additional cost. This has all been part of the planning of those organizations. What we've done is accelerated it. And so far, we're not into the additional cost. There will be a phase where there will be additional costs. The other thing is that we've been educating the 311 technicians to be more responsive and considerate in the way that they handle the older adult caller. But one thing that we've done with our city's technology officer, we are looking at a one-door approach, no wrong door approach. And, you know, AARP has been our partner in this, in the field of aging, but we're looking at it for all programs. If you come in for SNAP and you're eligible for something else, we should be making those referrals. It should not, should not put it on you. If you are getting rent, rent exemption, your second year should be automatic unless you opt out. And so trying to facilitate all of those processes, no wrong door, because we see that one, in SCREE, people do not return for the second year, and that really impacts their economic standing. We also see that if you have SNAP, you don't know that you're also eligible for other programs. And so we're looking at no wrong door, and really expanding our workforce presence. People are choosing to work longer. I definitely have chosen to. And people and employers benefit from an older workforce. Studies have shown over and over again that diversity in the workforce is profitable, but diversity also includes age inclusivity. And one of the things that we're working on is looking at workforce issues. So far, we've been able to expand our workforce initiatives at New York City Aging beyond the regular CSEP program. We have now included something called Silver Stars, which is a program for city retirees to be able to come back to city service. We're trying to advocate for that in the state also, where they can earn up to $38,000 a year without impacting their pension benefits. And now we're very fortunate to get a $4 million grant from AmeriCorps. So we're expanding it for people who want to work, who are not CSEP eligible, and who are not city employees. So for the general public. And in that program, what we're doing is looking at what the market needs are, and then certifying older adults to meet those market needs. So it's really a comprehensive workforce issue. And then lastly, we're working with the Mayor's Office on Civil Rights and Human Rights and upping the anti-ageism curriculum and looking at the rules and guidelines to make them much more stringent if we find ageism in the workplace. With that, I turn it back to you, Adam.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. Thank you for everything you do here in New York City.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your partnership with us.
Oh,
in
you
the
thank
state.
them. They're the ones that really do it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Adam Herbst. I'm the chair of the Master Plan for Aging here in the state of New York. I'd like to now turn it over to and invite Greg Olson from the State Office of Aging, the vice chair, to say some opening remarks as well. And I know he's joining us remotely, so I think we just need to get him on the screen. Okay, so we're going to come back to Greg once we figure out the technical difficulties here. Unless, John, you want to say some things here in the room as well.
Yes. John, if you can say a few words, I have to move on to my next meeting.
Okay, all right. No, John.
Testing?
Okay, so let's put the phone up to the microphone.
Testing, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Oh, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks for bearing with me. Thank you so much,
Technology.
Adam. Wish I could be in the room with you guys. I
We hear
really
you, Greg.
appreciate. You can still hear me, right? Okay, good. I see thumbs up. I appreciate Catherine and Lorraine's remarks this morning. Good morning. I'm Greg Olson. I'm the director of the New York State Office for Aging. Really excited about your interest and engagement in the master plan process. I really want to thank Adam, the entire team at the Health Department, John Cochran, and the entire team at the State Office for Aging, all of the state agencies, the stakeholder groups, the associations, and individuals that are participating in the targeted subcommittee. But you guys are really the important part of this journey to get community input. I most importantly want to thank Governor Hochul for her vision and leadership in setting into motion the development of this roadmap for how people of all ages can grow up and grow old successfully in New York State. You know, for those of us that have been working with older adults for decades, the mere fact that we're focusing on planning and how better to support older adults and their families holistically and approaching it with an understanding that aging is a unique journey for each individual that occurs over the lifespan is really historic. What we know about older adults and what I really liked about Catherine and Lorraine's comments was a positive outlook on the value of older individuals. We know that they are a tremendous asset to their family, to their community, and to the economy of New York State. Older adults are the #1 givers to philanthropy and charity. As Lorraine mentioned, they're the #1 entrepreneur group in the country, the largest volunteer cohort, spending millions of hours in tens of thousands of local not-for-profits, and they're a huge part of the tourism industry. In addition, millions of them are actually providing services to other people, whether they be older or younger themselves. They represent 40% of the state and local tax base. They are 43% of the state's GDP, and GDP is producing goods and services, and they support 6 million jobs in New York State, and they are also a big part of the workforce. So we want to be able to keep these assets and resources in New York State, and that's kind of what the master plan is all about, how you age in place. It's not a question that that's what people want to do. That is what everybody wants to do regardless of age. And so one of the goals is, again, to keep these contributions in New York State. This isn't a starting point. This is a building block, and a really, really important one at a really important time. New York has a very rich history and building blocks already in place to continue to strengthen communities for all ages. We recognize that older adults and their families, as was said before, touch many agencies. They do not live in the State Office for Aging. They do not live in the Health Department. They touch motor vehicle, taxation, parks and rec, housing, and on and on and on. And so what we have to do is recognize that that is true and demonstrate all the things that we're doing at the state level, local level, with tens of thousands of public and private partners on what we're doing to improve the lives of residents in New York State, and the steps that we can take collectively with these partnerships that will set the groundwork for the MPA to be building upon. We need to tie these things together better so that the public knows what we do and has an easy way to access what the partners provide, very similar to what Lorraine said with the no wrong door approach. New York became the first age-friendly state in the nation in 2018, and this background is important because we're not starting from scratch. And that began work that we've been building on since 2006 to create livable communities for people of all ages, because again, what was said previous is what's good for older adults is good for people of all ages and vice versa. The foundational blocks are really what we're building upon here with the MPA, to educate the public about what we're doing to improve people's lives, what we still need to do, and what existing work we can strengthen to make communities the best that they can be. Growing older is not the problem. How we've organized our caring community is what we need to focus on. As was mentioned, the overwhelming majority of individuals want and they can live in their homes and communities for a very long time successfully if the services and supports are available and accessible. We talk a lot about social determinants of health, and we should, because 60% of all healthcare spending is due to personal behaviors and choices and the environment from which we came from or which we live in. Our caring economy has focused on treating individuals after problems arise rather than preventing the problem in the first place. That's why previous and ongoing work, such as the prevention agenda, which is to improve overall public health in New York State, the health across all policies approach, which brings all of these state agencies and public-private partners together because we all have a stake. It's why it's so important. We cannot have a siloed approach as we're developing this 10-year working roadmap that will benefit all New Yorkers. We don't always do a good job in letting the public know what we do, how we do it, and the strength to better connect these systems as part of that goal. So the engagement in the public is the most important thing. We know what we do. We know what some of the other state agencies do, but we need a grassroots up approach, and this is really the beginning of that. We have just completed at the State Office for the Aging the first ever statewide community needs assessment survey and got 27,000 responses, 27,000. That is an incredible insight into what older adults think about their communities, their own health and wellness, their engagement, their economic situation, and so much more. Now what we're excited to do, and got the data yesterday, is a micro data analyzation, meaning we'll be able to look at county by county data and community data across a variety of fields, which is going to be really, really important to build into this process. So what do we need from you? It's pretty simple. We need your feedback from your coworkers, your family, your friends, anybody that you know, because you are the experts in the work that you do, the families that you live in, the communities that you live in. You've seen things that work, that are replicable. Those are the types of things that we're looking to engage people in, not only identifying what we do well, but where those gaps are and things that are tried and tested that can be helpful. So again, you are the experts in your lives, in the lives of your family, and the lives of your community, and that's the critical component now that we're moving into. So again, I want to thank Adam and his team, folks at State Office for Aging, Governor's Office, and everybody that's involved. Please stay engaged. Check the websites. There'll be many more of these public events, and keep the information, advice, and guidance coming, because that's what's going to make this successful as a working plan for the decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. So the essence of a master plan for aging lies in its ability to unite different parts of the public, government, and the private industry that might not often coordinate effectively. It brings together diverse opinions, ideas that we can share and achieve tangible outcomes together based on a common sense and collective efforts. Today marks the first of many town halls and public engagement events that we'll be doing across the state. Town halls, public engagement events for the Master Plan for Aging are crucial in the success of this endeavor. So we ensure that we can receive community input, transparency, inclusivity, and contribute and conduct to the effectiveness of our plan. Our intention is to hold these gatherings across all regions of the state, inviting people from various communities to share their ideas, concerns, and interests. And we acknowledge that the daily challenges faced by residents in Manhattan greatly differ from those encountered in Buffalo, in Utica, Plattsburgh, and Brooklyn. We recognize that every neighborhood has unique perspectives and priorities. And if we had the capacity for it, each would be able to draft their own localized master plan for aging. That's obviously not achievable. So in recognition of what we're trying to accomplish here, all of these regional differences, our aim is to keep all of you updated on the progress of the master plan and provide a platform for you in local, regional areas to contribute your thoughts and recommendations. We want to empower you and for you to take ownership and actively participate in the success of our state's master plan for aging. During today's session, we'll delve into the evolution of our plan, explain why New York requires such a comprehensive framework, and we'll provide some insight into the governor's initiative for drafting the process and shedding light on the structure and subject areas of the master plan for you to engage with us. Furthermore, we've received many questions in advance, both through online registration and from attendees presently here today and online. And as you entered, you may have noticed a table where you can receive an index card where you can write down your questions for the Q&A session at the end today. If you have a written question, kindly raise your card and our staff will collect it. Online, for those who we try to get a chat box, unfortunately, the number of people attending virtually prevented us from being able to do that. So instead, you can send your questions in real time to MPA townhall@health.ny.gov. And we'll see your questions and we'll try to address all of them today. Let's proceed now to the first slide in the presentation, where we'll cover various aspects, including why New York needs a master plan for aging and the intended scope of what we're trying to establish here. Once we talk about the critical nature identified in the process, it's important for everyone to understand the cross-cutting themes identified by our staff and all of the people engaged so far, such as diversity, equity, and inclusion, among others. We also want to outline our plans for ongoing public engagement throughout the next year and a half and address some pre-submitted questions that address that. Once again, before we get started, I want to express my gratitude for all of your presence here today and for your dedication in shaping a better future for all aging New Yorkers in our state. If we can go to the next slide, please. This particular slide may be familiar to many of you. As you presented, we've talked about the process. On November 4th, 2022, the governor took a significant step by signing the Executive Order number 23, thereby establishing a comprehensive process for drafting the New York State Master Plan for Aging. This executive order assigned the individuals entrusted with the responsibility of developing the plan, as well as organizing the structures that will facilitate this endeavor. The executive order laid out specific milestones along our path to ensure that both the governor and the public are well informed about our progress as we construct the plan. As highlighted in the executive order and as exemplified by the successful implementation of the master plans in states like California and Massachusetts, New York's plan is not a singular policy. Instead, it encompasses interrelated strategies and policy proposals that will be enacted at the state and local levels through legislation, through regulation, through public-private partnerships, and with your engagement as well. These proposals are designed with a 2-year, a 5-year, and 10-year horizons aligning with different goals along the way. The fundamental concept behind a plan like the Master Plan for Aging is to evaluate how we can effectively coordinate aging services and supports across all sectors, fostering a genuine whole-of-government effort that includes the public along the way. We want to truly embrace a whole-of-society approach. In a moment, we'll delve into the extensive reach of our plans process throughout state government. It's crucial to emphasize first that the term aging New Yorkers does not solely pertain to individuals over the age of 60. Rather, we are all aging New Yorkers, regardless of our current position within that process. All of these efforts that we're doing as part of this plan are driven by a fundamental guiding vision for the Master Plan for Aging, as articulated in this executive order. We aim to empower aging New Yorkers to lead fulfilling lives, ensuring their good health, freedom, dignity, and independence to age in place for as long as possible. Why do we find ourselves, if you can go to the next slide, please. Why do we find ourselves in need of a master plan? Let's consider the facts first, the data. New York State already houses the 4th largest population of residents over the age of 65, comprising nearly 22% of the entire state. In the next decade, we are poised to welcome a substantial influx of older New Yorkers, reshaping the demographic landscape here. By 2030, 51 counties across the state will have over 25% of their population consisting of people over 60. A staggering 5.3 million New Yorkers will surpass the age threshold within this time frame. This means that many of our aging baby boomers will require financial resources to access care in long-term care settings, will require other services to remain in their home. And I just want to remark for a moment, long-term care settings amount for nearly 35% of the state's total Medicaid spending, emerging as one of the primary cost drivers. It's essential to underscore this point. Long-term care settings, although not the only aspect of the plan, is a critical element to the plan to ensure that we have a future that is cost affordable and sustainable. Now let's envision a future 10 years from now. New York will house a huge population of individuals over the age of 60, nearly double the current figure. Astonishingly, 1 out of every 4 New Yorkers will be considered an older adult. This seismic demographic shift will permeate every facet of our lives, transforming family structures, communities, and serving as a driving force in the state's economy. Moreover, this upcoming generation of older New Yorkers will exhibit remarkable diversity and enjoy longer lifespans. They will continue to contribute in our state's vibrancy, offering new and untold ways to enhance our collective well-being. However, as our state ages, we will also encounter shared challenges that transcend generations. More individuals are choosing to remain in the workforce, like Lorraine mentioned. Many of our neighbors are living alone, and economic security eludes too many of us, in contrast to prior decades. Each of these trends presents unique opportunities, yet they demand a significant response to ensure that all people in New York are engaged and provided with equitable opportunities to thrive as they traverse different ages and stages in life. Hence the motivation behind our creation of the New York State Master Plan for Aging. Our plan will serve the purpose of constructing a comprehensive framework capable of addressing both our current and our future demographic realities, along with the associated needs they entail. It embodies a unified, coordinated effort that will respond on a grand scale. And let me emphasize this point once again. A truly broad scale. If we will identify and develop strategies, as well as foster partnerships across the state with the public, with private industry, with state government and local government, all of which are essential to promote a healthy and equitable aging for every New Yorker. It is crucial, next slide please. It is crucial that we are not starting from scratch. As we've already mentioned several times this morning, in 2017, New York became the first state to enroll AARP's network of age-friendly communities, receiving the official designation as an age-friendly place to live. This achievement was the result of a wide-ranging, intense effort that has since led to ongoing examination and improvement of how we support older New Yorkers. Obtaining the age-friendly state designation involved extensive work across various domains, prioritizing social determinants of health and the 8 domains of livability, which include outdoor spaces and buildings and transportation, housing, social participation, respect and social inclusion, work and civic engagement, communication and information, and community and health services. To make improvements, we must understand our starting point and identify the existing gaps in our system where innovation and services can be introduced. As part of the plan process, we are documenting all these task forces, all the committees, and all the reports issued up to this point in aging and the long-term care field. This comprehensive understanding will help us understand and ensure that our work is additive and builds upon the best practices and proposals that have already been developed. It is vital to emphasize that addressing the needs of older adults requires a holistic approach that involves the entire government, including state and local, and society at large. We're examining the interconnectedness of various factors that affect aging, the aging experience in New York, And as people's lives do not neatly fit into isolated regulatory compartments, the ultimate goal is to create a call to action that holds everyone accountable for the success of our plan. We have an ambitious agenda that encompasses various challenges related to housing and transportation and the protections against abuse and fraud, the rising demand for healthcare services as people age, Medicaid, Medicare funding, healthcare workforce challenges, family caregivers, and enabling meaningful choice and community-based living. In our discussions about the master plan up to this point, we've deliberately referred to the aging and disability communities as an opportunity to engage. And this is because older adults and people with disabilities are not isolated entities. They have families, they have friends, they have peers, and we have communities that are all impacted by their well-being. We consider the support systems of aging New Yorkers, and they're not solely focused on government programs. We also want to ensure that we're recognizing these ecosystems and looking at the community so people can age in place and rely on the interconnectedness when it's crucial for people to remain in the home for as long as possible. We're aware of the complexity of this project, and we've developed key concepts in our plan that guide our vision for the future and the path to achieving it. Our desired outcome, if we can go to the next slide, our desired outcome includes integrated and age-friendly community health systems. And as you see on this slide, we're looking at all these broad ideas. It's critical that we look at these different supports and systems that we have here in New York to ensure that we have an effective plan. We are going to look at these players and ensure that we have the right people coming to the table as we speak to the public, and also ensuring that we acknowledge the comprehensive response that's required from government and society to fulfill a moral imperative of supporting older adults. Again, we want to try to do this holistically, so we'll look at different factors. We'll look at the interesting dynamic between each of these factors. And if we can go to the next slide. It's essential that we acknowledge the response required from both government and society to fulfill a moral imperative of supporting older New Yorkers. That's why we've put these ideas on here, and it links up with what the city has been doing and what AARP and other community-based organizations. We want to ensure that people have the opportunity to get these ideas on the screen today, and that is what is critical. And we want to ensure we get your valuable insight along in this process. So please, as we try to build trust and transparency in the master plan process, your commitment to working with us as open governance, we want to hear your voices, and we respect your ideas with respect to laying the foundation for change to the aging landscape for the long haul. This is, again, critical to identify community-specific needs. New York has unique characteristics. As I mentioned, different regions, different areas of the state have different resources, challenges, as well as ideas and relevancy to ensure that we have an effective plan. And once again, we want to empower you. Your commitment, your ownership, and your participation is critical to meeting each of the foundations we've laid up here on this slide. Next slide, please. So, the intricacy of this project is not lost on us. And I just wanted to put this slide on here so everyone can fully appreciate the way we've built out the structure of our ultimate goal of getting recommendations and putting them into place for the governor and for local governments to work with us. So again, the governor signed the executive order, and we have created 2 committees that will work with us. One representing all of the state agencies. We've already mentioned how critical it is that this is not just limited to the Department of Health or the State Office of Aging. We need all of our state partners to come along with us in this process. And the commissioners and their staffs make up that state agency council. The other council, the other committee, is private individuals who represent communities, organizations, advocacy groups, and those stakeholders have brought their ideas from their representation to our group to share with the State Agency Council. And together, these 2 groups are going to help to participate with the public at large to ensure we have all recommendations readily available when we submit that to the governor. We've also created various work groups and subcommittees. And as you can see here, we try to be as broad-based in building out these subcommittees. We wanted to ensure that we linked up with what AARP has created in their age-friendly initiatives and what has been built before to ensure that this is continuity. And also, we want to link up with the local governments, and these work groups and these subcommittees encompass large teams to have all regional aspects represented. And most importantly, at the bottom, you see the town hall listening sessions, the public outreach surveys, and the websites and newsletters, the communication to ensure that we have an inclusive process. It is so important that we have these town halls, that we have these public hearings, once again, to make sure that we are transparent in the process, to ensure that we are inclusive in the process, and that you can contribute to the effectiveness of the master plan for aging. We want to hear from you, and that is why it's so important that the structure, these work groups and these subcommittees have the opportunity to come out to the public, and we'll be doing this throughout the state, and hear from you. And we have done several surveys already, and we'll continue to do that, to hear your ideas and build trust and that transparency to gain and gather that valuable insight. Next slide, please. So the state has created, I'm just going to move this so people here in the room can see. Everyone see now? So these subcommittees, once again, have been created to represent quite a bit of the journey. The dedication to build the scale of this initiative is recognizing all of these large pillars, and each subcommittee is represented by leaders in the field, individuals from different aspects of New York, and ensuring that we can build out a process where we're hearing the experts on each topic. We're not always the experts. We want to hear from you. And that's why we're addressing and recognizing the vast scope of the master plan's process to organize into these 8 distinct subcommittees. This is a deliberate approach that allows us to comprehensively address every aspect that needs to be considered to develop an inclusive and effective plan. These subcommittees are covering a wide range of critical areas, including long-term services supports, and all of these 8 up here, which I won't read to you, but I'm thrilled that we have really built out some real expertise. And I encourage you, if you would like to engage, please reach out to the master plan. And we'll say at the end of the process today how you can reach out and engage. If you would like to join a subcommittee or a work group, if one of these areas, one of these 8 areas speaks to you and you want to contribute, please reach out to us. We're going to dive into specific problems and engage into detailed workshops to develop proposed solutions in each of these various areas. And this is how our recommendations are going to come to fruition. Next slide, please. I'm thrilled. Oh. I could just. So I'm thrilled to share that the subcommittees and their corresponding work groups are fully engaged and actively working to identify the priorities and recommendations within their focus areas. What I'd like to do now for a few moments is explain to you the process, the themes that have emerged so far in the process. Let's again move this out of the way. So we have developed in each subcommittee an idea, a theme to encompass the aspects that are critical to ensuring that we are hearing from the experts once again. We're considering these themes throughout our work, and these are just a handful. There are more, but I want to give you an opportunity to appreciate the vast scale and the ideas that we're aiming to create in the process that embodies the principles of inclusivity, compassion, and progress. Our collective efforts will pave the way for a future where aging New Yorkers and their communities thrive. And that is why we've created these themes and we've developed them. And if you have ideas that you'd like to participate once again, please reach out to us as we go through the process. You know, we stand on the cusp of really important milestones in the journey. And as we approach July, we are eagerly anticipating the submission of a preliminary report that we'll hand to the governor. This report will serve as a testament to our progress already, encapsulating the diligent efforts that the teams, the community, and the work groups have all worked on together. Within the pages of this preliminary report, we'll provide an overview of the discussions already held and set the stage for the agenda for the coming year for these groups to pursue and ensure that we have a final report next July to ensure that we have really spoken to everybody. We have an ambitious agenda ahead of us, and this endeavor is going to be critical for us to ensure that you're hearing about the process. We have already established the plan to ensure that we are well on the way to submitting our preliminary report. And once again, we're going to do much engagement to ensure that this final draft hears from you. So we, again, want to have accountability and transparency to ensure that you are part of the process. And that's why I put up this idea of a final advisory report that we'll submit in 2024, and then we'll hopefully adopt the master plan for aging in 2025. So I want to now go to some questions because it's important that we have the opportunity to engage with you. Many people have already submitted questions on their cards here in the room, and people have submitted them in advance. And I hope that online people are sending their emails with their questions in. And we're going to respond to some questions now, both online and here in the room. The first question I've received is what is New York planning for aging adults who cannot afford the needed level of care in their own homes? And this is a central question to the master plan project. It's one of the hardest questions facing every developed society worldwide, and there isn't one answer. We're taking a few approaches to this question as they look at both sides of the equation. How do we help people pay for the care they need, and how do we make the care more affordable? The work group on technology and the work group on home services will both be looking at how technology can facilitate a better, more efficient care. We're engaging with the workforce crisis to ensure that an adequate number of caregivers are available and that they're paid appropriately. And we're looking at how community structure can help make more services accessible, which will reduce delivery costs to people who want to age in place for as long as possible. We're also engaging with different forms of Medicaid and Medicare and safety net programs to help facilitate that aging in place process. Again, these questions have been submitted in advance, and that's why we're addressing them first. For those who have questions, please raise your hand, and people here in the room, and people will pick up your card. And for you online, please send your emails to that email address you see here, and we'll try to get every question answered today. Another question that came in initially was, will ageism be addressed among agencies that are unaccustomed to working with older adults? This is a great opportunity to have conversations about perceptions and stereotypes. This is a terrific question, and thank you for raising it. One of the visionary aspects of the governor's executive order was creating a state agency council, bringing different state agencies in the process, like I've already mentioned. We'll be using data, resources, and the expertise from across state government to ensure that we expose all the different ways that older adults need to work together. And as a result, we've had the opportunity to engage with members of the State Agency Council already. And as we continue to do so as part of the plan, ultimately, their thinking is going to contribute to the process along with all of yours. And that's why it's important for us to meet these goals. Thank you. The next question was to meet its goal of keeping people living in their homes for as long as possible. Is the master plan considering the expansion of community-based models like naturally occurring retirement communities, NORCs? And if so, can the MPA leverage and advocate for additional funding for an expansion in the state budget process? It's a really important question. Housing is one of the most complex challenges that we're working with in the master plan for aging to engage with and try to consider with final recommendations. There's no single comprehensive solution for ensuring that people have access to safe, affordable housing that meets their needs. NORCs, like some other communities and models out there, are a great model for how to leverage organic support into a system that people can rely on. We have participants in the master plan for aging process that are experts in housing, much more of an expert than I am. And these options that they're partnering with and participating with their ideas on will hopefully help answer some of these questions that will help with costs and savings and building a broader plan for housing and community-based services. The next question was, how will the MPA empower and train older adults to engage each other in disease self-management and healthy aging through peer support? You know, this question is complementary to the last one, but more broadly, we have a work group engaged in community services and organizations, and we have a whole subcommittee engaged with questions of prevention as the core of general health and wellness. But the point of this question is really important. Training older adults to support each other is an idea that we're generating and we're putting into the master plan work groups. And there's a whole subcommittee of informal caregivers that are also looking at how friends and family are a critical part of the aging ecosystem. So this question, and I hope many people appreciate that we are examining different models for training both older adults and new generations to help with supporting prevention efforts of aging illness and supporting people as they go through the aging process with mutual support. I want to go to some questions now we've received in the room, and I hope also we're collecting questions from online in the interim. First question in the room is, to meet its goal of keeping people living in their homes for longer, is the MPA considering the expansion of community-based models? And this is a great question. I think I just answered a very similar question. It's a really important point. We want to ensure that people can age in place for as long as possible. We're going to work with regulations and providers to help with different services, some requiring us to streamline the way state government works and local government works, but this is something that has broader implications that is a critical component to the master plan process. The next question is, sorry, these questions are very similar, so I just want to make sure that we get to some questions online as well. Here's another question. It's important to consider broader implications of community-based care. We kind of just talked about that. It's important for us to really consider the barriers to developing adequate supply of the many services of older adults. We have work groups under formal caregivers that I spoke about. We have home and community-based services that are engaging with the barriers of home care delivery. And part of the conversation over the next year is understanding where regulations are necessary to establish a baseline of good conduct, so that clients of caregivers know what to expect and what services they should receive, and regulations that are meeting that that might not be as relevant today. Artifacts are piecemeal, need to be reevaluated. And I think that's important as we look at the current structure of the master plan process. The next question is, how does the state envision the private sector engaging directly or indirectly with the plan? I really want to stress that it's critical that the public engages with us in this plan. If I haven't stressed it enough, this is an inclusive process, and we want to be as transparent in the process as possible. So your efforts, your engagement is critical for us, and we have created different opportunities for you to reach out through our website, our email. We're going to have additional town halls, and we'll have surveys. And I encourage you to reach out in one or many different ways, so this way we can be hearing from you. Next question online is what groups and initiatives, committees will be addressing social isolation and engagement for older adults? Really important question, and we have a handful. I think every work group that we've created has had that conversation in one way or another. It's a great question, and I really appreciate the fact that we are all addressing social isolation as a critical component to allow people to age in place for as long as possible, but not to be left alone, not to be left to feel like they are by themselves. We have great systems and great networks in New York. Greg mentioned some at the beginning of his talk. Lorraine mentioned some here in New York City. We have so many resources across the state. The importance now is for us to create connectivity between them and work across state government, local government, and the private sector and nonprofits to ensure that communities are allowing people to have the resources, that they're not isolated, and they can age in their home for as long as possible. Next question is, will issues concerning older adults, including physical abuse, financial exploitation, and neglect, be addressed in the master plan? Absolutely. We actually just had a call about that and a conversation at the council meeting the other day. I appreciate the importance of this, and this is an issue that's come up in a handful of the subcommittees already and work groups as well. You're absolutely right. This is something that needs to be addressed and taken very seriously in New York. And we have, again, the baseline. Now it's only important for us to work at the state and local level to ensure that we have the resources in place to protect older New Yorkers. Next question is, how does climate change with the air quality issues that we're experiencing today bring this to mind, favor to the MPA's goals of independence and health and wellness? That's a really timely question, a really critical question, and I appreciate that idea. You know, we haven't really encountered this question yet with respect to climate change, and thank you for the input here. I think we'll continue to work on this as a key area that we can fit within one area, or two of the work groups. I see that we are actually approaching the 2-hour mark of today's meeting, and I want to be sensitive to people's time. Are there any remaining questions that people have in the room that you can raise your hand and we can try to answer that now? And if you do not have one now, feel free, please, to send your questions and we'll respond in due course. We just get a mic. Hang on one second, Arvin. Will you just bring a microphone to him?
Hi, Adam. Harvey Rosenthal, New York Association of Psych Rehab Services. I'm the CEO. Luke Zucchini is our policy director. I really want to make sure we talk about mental health. And I know that's part of the plan. I'm on the health and wellness group, and I know we'll be talking about that. But we've created peer support models to help folks leave institutions and go to the community. And this is not about us. It's about helping people leave institutions. So I know we're talking about age in place, but there's some people who probably ought to leave nursing homes and go into the community. And I want to, it's really not a question, it's a recommendation that we look into peer-to-peer support models to help folks leave nursing homes and move into the community, and also to have those peers be in the nursing homes to help support the nursing home staff and the person while they're in the placement there.
Thank you, Harvey. It's a really underappreciated point. And I think it's a very important point. So thank you for raising that. And I hope people understand that. And certainly we'll consider that as part of some of the conversations in the work groups that we're having. I think we just need to get the mic to you for people online so they can hear it.
Judy Zangwell, Executive Director, Sunnyside Community Services, Sunnyside Home Care Project. My concern is that there are many, particularly not-for-profit providers, I know you're aware of this, experiencing serious challenges in the provision of home care. I'm a little concerned that these really need to be addressed immediately and not wait for the completion of the master plan. So if you could please speak to that.
Sure. You know, we've had many conversations as part of the master plan process on this already. It's something at both the State Office of Aging and the Department of Health we speak about all the time. We're certainly sensitive to this. We hear the advocacy, and we want to work together with you on this along the process. And we hope that you can engage to give us ideas and solutions as part of our recommendations that we can give over to the governor, that we can accomplish a collective effort. We hear the idea of the question, and I certainly think that we'll continue to address this as part of the master plan process. And your engagement is critical to getting us those proper recommendations. So thank you.
Kevin Howell, the Anchor Group. We are a strategic consulting firm in the senior and disabled space. One of the conversations that we see coming out is workforce. What is the plan for workforce, and how does it look differently from what we have today? How are you incorporating the next generation of workers to connect to senior care? And are you willing to change the model to like in Florida, you have a system called Papo.com, which kids in high school, in colleges, can be a part of the home care continuum. Is New York open to those types of models, and will you kind of shift the rules to kind of break the traditional way that services are provided to incorporate more people into the workforce to provide these services?
Thank you for that question. The governor has been very clear about supporting workforce pipelines, ensuring that we have the proper workforce structure and infrastructure in place. Just with respect to the master plan for aging, we have two subcommittees exclusively focused on caregiving and workforce. We have informal caregivers and informal caregivers. And it's an issue that's come up at all the subcommittees because it's critical for us to create a system that has the right caregivers, both paid and non-paid. All of us are caregivers in one way for aging New Yorkers. And as we age, we might care for other people as well. And then we have the paid workforce as well. We have so many partners that are critical as part of the process already. And I encourage some people who are in the room today and online who I know are advocates in this area to continue to partner with us. The work groups that are addressing this are focused exclusively on solutions, and they will partner with many of the ideas that have already come up in the governor's initiative, both in the budget process and in her state of the state discussions. It's critical that New York gets workforce correct, and I know it's something that everyone is focused on in state government and in local government. So thank you for your question. The next question is what policy and legislation does the Master Plan on Aging have to impact influence over? The process is the recommendations that we'll hopefully give in a year from now. The final recommendations to the governor will impact both the executive and the legislature to work together at the state level and also influence local governments. So we're going to work with New York City. We're going to work with local governments across the state to ensure that there is this partnership between the state and local communities. The budget process will be influenced hopefully by many of the recommendations, caregiving, and some of the pipelines and ideas that we're going to give over to both the legislature and to the governor that hopefully will be implemented after we submit our recommendations on that timeline that I showed in that slide in 2024 and 2025. And as along the way, the preliminary report is already starting to frame many of these ideas. And we hope, again, that your partnership, your ideas will help partner with all the different elected officials from a policy, from a legislative and regulatory framework. So thank you for that question. We have a question right here.
Good morning. I'm Lisa First. I'm with Vibrant Emotional Health. Thank you for your remarks today. This was a terrific event. Most folks in the room and you yourself, of course, know the New York State budget this year had an unprecedented investment in mental health, which was terrific, of $1 billion, independent of the master plan. But given the governor's clear interest and dedication in mental health, I am curious how the master plan will make explicit recommendations to the state that investment be made in community-based mental health services for older adults, because the current investment does not, in fact, do that.
Yep.
So I'm really curious about how all of that's going to come together in a very explicit way.
Thank you for that question. It's very similar to Harvey's point before. This is something that we are spending so much time on in a handful of the work groups. It's a critical component because, like we said at the beginning, the master plan is not just physical health, it's mental health, and it's all of the other age-friendly initiatives. We mentioned them, housing, transportation. Mental health, behavioral health is a critical component to aging in New York, and we want to get that right. So we have experts that are partnering with us, Harvey being one. Many other people in the room are experts in this field, and we encourage other experts to come forward and join us in the process. It's critical we get mental and behavioral health right for so many reasons as part of the master plan for aging. So thank you for your question. Question back there.
Hi, everyone. My name is Charity Munson. I'm the director and administrator for hospice and home care at Parker Jewish Institute. And I just wanted to quickly speak to workforce and just wanted to offer that based on my own personal experience, which allowed me to become the healthcare provider I am today, I wanted to offer that one of the ways that we could impact and work toward a continual stream of workforce for the future is specifically grant programs that would give access to training for persons who may not have the resources to enter a program, they're limited in their resources. Having a grant program specifically that would allow them to enter the program and where there is a job waiting for them at the end, it would be pretty much they don't have to worry about how do I afford training. I want to enter the workforce for healthcare, but I don't have the resources. And for me personally, I was once that person who, if there was not a grant program available that provided me with the education and then a job waiting for me, I would not be a director today. Because of the grant programs, I was able to enter nursing school free of cost because the grant paid for it. It provided us with stipends so that I could eat and have transportation to go to classes. And afterwards, I had a job waiting for me. I worked to pay back the time that was invested in me to be educated. That resulted in me becoming a registered nurse, being able to enter Delphi University, being able to enter Columbia University, and becoming a director because there was a grant program. And I didn't have to worry because I was one of those kids who was on welfare and I didn't have the resources. So I'm very passionate about spreading that type of, offering the type of message that we need more grant programs where you just have to present yourself and say, I want to join the healthcare force, but I don't have the resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And congratulations. And it's your dedication and so many people like you that really make our system work and be successful. Thank you so much for your point, and it's well taken.
Hi, I'm Greg Lynch. I work with the Suffolk County Department of Public Health. And I have a question. Are you going to be addressing the specific needs and concerns of the elder LGBT population? And if so, how and where are you going to get your information to best direct your efforts?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Yes, we want to be as inclusive in the process as possible. And we have representatives already in several subcommittees and work groups. And if others are interested in joining for representation, on our website, we have a list of who is representing different communities already. And I encourage everyone to go to our website, npa.newyork.gov, and you can see all the different community-based organizations, advocacy groups, and partners that we have already who are already bringing ideas forward for all the different groups that we have representing different populations of New Yorkers. And again, if you would like to participate, your organization, you as an individual, we encourage you to reach out to us so you can engage with us. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. Wendell Walters from the Osborne Association. We're a criminal justice service organization based in the Bronx, but we are statewide. I think you answered my question just a moment ago, but just feel I have to mention it. Our group, anyway. There are thousands of older adults being released from state correctional facilities each year after decades of incarceration. They are in desperate need of reentry support with issues like housing, of course, employment, healthcare, medical, and mental, and disconnection from community. Does the master plan recognize this issue and offer any strategy to address their unique challenges?
Thank you for that question. In the short answer, yes, we are addressing it and we have representation there. But once again, the critical point of having these town halls, these community-based conversations, is for you to hear what we're doing and for you to partner with us. So if you have both people online today and all the people in the room today, if you would like to join us in the process, please, your advocacy, your representation, your ideas and thoughts are so important, and we welcome them. We welcome all of your ideas. Please engage with us. We have specific work groups who are focused on that, and I really appreciate you raising that question today. Thank you.
Hi, Nancy Speller from St. Mary's Healthcare System for Children with LV Fardello. Thank you for this opportunity. We're here representing the growing aging out population of medically fragile and medically complex individuals. And we wanted to know if there was if they are included in this plan.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. The Master Plan for Aging and Disability is focused on just that, aging and disability. Medically fragile kids are aging, and they are part of the disability community. And as a part of that, we are focused on different settings, long-term care settings, and we will focus on different populations. MFC, medically fragile kids, are just a portion of that, and they are included in what we're considering here. So thank you. And I know that population well, and I certainly agree that they need to be considered as part of the population of ideas and policy suggestions in the process. So thank you for your question. Any other questions here in the room?
Hi, Luke Zucchini with NIAPRS again. We have had some folks in different regions talk to us a little bit about issues with transportation. I know you have a transportation subcommittee, but also with broadband connection for those people who are unable to access transportation or have more difficulty getting transportation and are living in rural areas. So providers are often few and far between. And they've had a lot of trouble getting broadband and internet services in these rural communities because a lot of companies won't provide services out there, which prevents them from accessing telehealth services that can really bridge the gap. Are you all looking at this as one of the areas to really improve some of the services?
Thank you for that question. As part of the process, we're trying to build trust and partnership with for-profit industry organizations in various aspects in different industries, including that is telecommunication, communication. And as part of the team, we've been reaching out to private organizations to partner to ensure that we can look at ideas like broadband access, like communication, like telehealth services. There are so many large organizations here in New York. And the wonderful thing about New York State is that we have so many smaller startup organizations that are focused on this. And we have been looking across the spectrum for partnerships, people who want, and organizations that want to work with us to not only work on their own bottom line, but also partner in what we're trying to accomplish here. And this is something that we consider every day as part of our ongoing efforts to reach out and build partnerships, both in the private sector and in the public sector. So it's something we consider and something that we can always use additional assistance on. And if there are people who would like to come from the private sector and any of the different work groups or subcommittees that we've mentioned today, again, I implore you to come forward and work with us. And this is just a really important area that we're continuing to focus on. So thank you for that. We have another question online. We have a question. How will you be collaborating with regional public health departments on this process? Thank you for that question. in many ways. In settings like this, we've invited and we've been invited to go on road shows, go out, leave our offices in Albany and in New York City, and actually go out into the regional community centers, regional institutions, and work with the public and work with the local governments. Representation from each different region across the state is already sitting on each of the subcommittees and each of the work groups. So this way, each regional's diversity of population and location in the state is represented. And again, we are so unique in New York that we have a difference between so many different parts of the state and certain different populations. We want to hear from all the different aspects, and that's why we're going out. We're hearing from you here today in New York City, next week in Albany, and we're going to share town halls across the next several months across the state. And when we come out to different communities, we'll be advertising that in all the different ways that we have shared on this slide. And also we'll be communicating with our representation and our links in the regions to make sure that those people that we hope to invite from the public will engage with us. So it's critical for us to be partnering with all the different diversity of regional areas around the state, and their input is going to be shared, and it's something that we're continuing to do in the process over the next year. Another question is, I'm a case manager for duly enrolled Medicare and Medicaid members at a health insurance company. We collect social determinants of health information on all of our members, and case managers have a pretty deep understanding of the various barriers of our members face in every part of the state. Is the Master Plan for Aging partnering with any health insurers or case management agencies for the social determinants of health data and their input? Thank you for that question. Another aspect to the master plan process to ensure that we do capture the diversity of thought and expertise is we're having many roundtables. Several roundtables will bring representation from different sectors. One important sector is the health plans and the payers, and understanding what is in their plate with respect to social determinants of health, with respect to their work with the different aging populations is so important. So not only are we engaging with the public through town halls and public hearings, but we're having private conversations with all the leadership of the various plans, health centers, hospital systems, transportation companies, communication companies, and we hope to get their input with respect to that question and many of the other ideas that have been shared today. So thank you for that question.
Hello, my name is Troy Outlaw. I'm with the Attorney General's office, and I work on scams and frauds. Is the master plan working on something that would help prevent scams and frauds, and also providing some sort of services that would assist the seniors with that sort of issue? Maybe also mental health piece if they lost a extravagant amount of funds due to those issues.
Yeah, thank you for that question. We have representation from state government, all the different commissioners for the various agencies partnering with us, and many of them are focused on that exclusively. Again, this is not just healthcare. This is not just transportation. Aging requires us to look at the fraud and the abuse that continues to occur here in New York. And it's important for us to find ways in the Master Plan for Aging recommendations that we can help protect aging New Yorkers as best that we can. And we'll continue to do so in our recommendations. Thank you. Any last questions in the room? We'll be doing many more of these town halls here in New York City. And like I mentioned, we'll be putting out advertisements for our future town halls across the state, both in New York, the New York metro area, Long Island, Westchester, and surrounding communities. And we'll continue to go upstate and across the state in the coming months. So thank you so much for you partnering with us today. I want to thank the governor for her unwavering dedication to the master plan for aging. I want to thank our guests who came today and all of you who have partners with your ideas, your suggestions, and your continued engagement to help us build a New York that's age-friendly, that is a proper place for us to remain, that will foster communities where people of all ages and abilities are valued, are engaged, and provided equitable opportunities to thrive as they age in their desired settings. Thank you so much, and we look forward to speaking with you soon.